Hey Jacob, how are you today?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Good, very good. We've never really done an intro to this show. Does it need it? It doesn't really need it, does it?
Put in the description.
What is this show, Jacob? Elevator pitch.
Follow along as I try and fail and try and succeed and fail at starting a podcast and the business that the podcast is about, I guess.
Yeah, perfect. So we're talking about how to run a podcast essentially. And you're early on in the journey, and you've hit. We just talked about it before we came on mic. You've hit one of the most common problems that a podcast hits, essentially, which is
Inconsistency. Genuinely just not finding the time. And I don't actually know, like, I know in my bones if I could, I can find the time. I can make the time. But there's something, I guess, I don't know. Other things always take precedence.
yeah.
And I guess it's just, it, it's psychological. I know it is. Like I
Mhm.
could do it, but there's always something else that's like, no, this is more important. You should do this.
Yeah.
This is going to move the needle more on this particular goal.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have this goal of consistently publishing this podcast and creating this content. So
Mhm.
yeah, not sure exactly what the solution is, but
How important is that goal?
it's fairly important. It's fairly important, but not urgent. And I think that's probably partly it.
Mhm.
Um, so there's for the podcast and for what the podcast is about, there's a
Mhm.
timeline. And as we get closer and closer to the timeline, it's feeling like this is not going to happen in the timeline.
Deadline.
So
Yeah.
the closer it gets, it's like, well, does it matter? Does the timeline matter that much, or just doing the thing, is that what matters?
Yeah. How much do you believe in the concept that if you were to launch your show at the last possible minute, just when it's necessary, that it'll still have the effect that you want? Or do you believe in the idea that content does take months to build
Yeah.
up momentum?
Do you know, I think it's funny with the type of content that it is, and this is a thing. Like, I still think that primarily the main purpose for this podcast is twofold. It's for me to document the journey for
Hmm.
me,
Yeah.
but also to get experience in podcasting. So this is going to
Mhm.
be different from many of the viewers of this. Like one of the big reasons I wanted to do this was because I've been working with the podcast personality for a long time now, and I didn't have a bloody podcast, so I don't have the first-hand pain which I'm feeling right now
Yeah.
as to what like the difficulties are. So in that sense, it's maybe not exactly the same, but yeah.
Do you have do you have a time each week that you have set out to do the podcast?
No, it does vary, and that's potentially part of the problem.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of things in this, I think. One is, so you can take Podcraft as an example around how we've tried to build consistency here. And Podcraft has not been utterly consistent all the time, but we've consistently we've consistently been consistent in between non-consistent bars. Does that make sense?
Yeah, cycles
We
of
do it.
consistency.
We do it as a seasonal type show,
Yeah.
which means that we commit to putting out an episode every week for, let's say, 3 months, and then we take a month or two off. Sometimes a bit longer, actually. But the way we stay consistent during that time is, I think, two different things. One is actually just having that slot in the calendar every single week. So Tuesday morning, 9:30 in my calendar is an appointment that says record Podcraft, 9:30 to 10:30, and it's always there, repeating in my calendar every single week.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible for you to put in and stick to, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Do you know, it started off that way, and then
Uh-huh.
one thing or another came up, and it's like, oh, okay, let's change the calendar. And I think it
Yeah.
got changed a bunch of times for a bunch of
Yeah.
different reasons, where I think the routine did get lost.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so that's maybe something in
I
there.
think, yeah, that's only part of it, though, I think, actually. So if you can do that to start with, you're absolutely right. Like, the first thing that happens there is that you come to that appointment and you say, oh, no, but I'm so busy. I've got all these other things to do. I need to do them instead. And so you kind of drop out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I think, and the other part of how I think Podcraft is consistent is that it's the same two people every week. So I always have Matthew that I record it with. So I have somebody else I'm responsible to when I'm recording
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So to cancel it or to move it is harder work than me just clicking the button and saying, no, I'll do this tomorrow instead. And I think that is a huge part of it. And there's a couple of ways to build that in. I think, do you what's the format for most of your episodes just now? Is it just yourself, or are you doing it with your co-founder?
I mean, it's me and you. Mostly, isn't it?
But you have been doing some by yourself, and you've been doing some with.
Yeah, there's been a few. Well, like, see, like this week I had a solo episode to put out, and I was meant to go out yesterday, and it didn't. Other things,
but it hasn't. Yeah,
just.
Yeah. And sorry, I've totally forgotten the name of the guy you're doing this with.
Ryan.
That was on the tip of my tongue. I should have. But you've done. Have you not done a couple of episodes with him as well?
Yeah, we've done one, which we repurposed from our from a call that we did, and we thought about doing others, but there's it's actually hard to do. Like, it almost worked because it was a really rough episode, and it was meant to be, but the connection between him and us, because he's in Australia, is dodgy. Although he has moved now, so maybe he's got some better broadband or something. We should test that.
Yeah. I think that might be something worth thinking about, making it more regular with him. Because the fact that the two of us do it, you're the driver of this show. So I'm never going to tell you we have to do it any given week. So I'm useless in terms of accountability on this one. With me and Matthew's the one that produces the show. So if I'm too busy, he always tells me. And we both have said, this is a really high priority to us to get this consistent and to put it out. So even if I say, oh, I'm too busy, he'll say, no, let's just do it. And if he says the same thing, I'll say, no, let's do it. So that's kind of like my core show with, like, for anything. Whereas with you, the one that we do together, I'm the secondary part of it. So I'm never going to force you. So probably something that you could do to build that commitment. And I think this would work for anyone watching, listening as well, is it's great to have an accountability partner that you have both stated quite clearly to each other or to yourselves, like how important this is and why as well. It goes back to that. We talked about this on an early episode around like planning out the goals. Like, what's the purpose? Like, I think that's a bit that a lot of people skim over. You talk a lot about like what the show is, who it's for, problem solution, all that kind of stuff. Like, how do you make a good show? But actually forget about the listener for a second. What's in it for you? Like, why is it worth committing to this? And really making that super clear why it's worth doing it every single week. And it's kind of, it almost becomes a bit ephemeral. It can be kind of hard to nail that down in some ways, but I think you stated a couple of really good ones earlier. Yeah. It's around getting that experience podcast, and it's around all sorts of things related to what you're doing. So, but if you can note them down, and if you and Ryan can have a chat about that so that you both agree this is really worthwhile, then suddenly there's a kind of really strong accountability there that you can maybe never break, or hopefully not break. And even if you do some solo shows still, you can tell him, like, get on my back if I don't get this done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, I think going into it, I think one of the reasons that it was one of the unique points of it was that it's a weird dynamic, but actually I don't think the weird dynamic is working in its favor, because you're quite right. Like, yeah, you're not going to mind if it's here or there or any time. It's just a time in your calendar that's there or not, really. Yeah. And it's me and Ryan that are actually, we have the vested interest together. Yeah. But you asked, you alluded to a question earlier on about whether it's now the right time, and actually maybe it's not. Yeah. Maybe the reasons that it keeps getting pushed out are good reasons. And
yeah, totally. Yeah, the hard question to ask is, you keep putting this off. Is it actually worthwhile? You think about that purpose, you set your purpose, you say, I really wanted to do a podcast, but actually, is it worthwhile? Does it fit in? Yeah. Is it not the right time? Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted just to kind of clarify there, but what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think objectively it might not be the right time, because the reason that I keep pushing it is because I want to do more of the work which the podcast covers. Do you know what I mean? So actually, the purpose of the podcast is actually interfering with its own purpose in a weird sort of a Robber Ross sort of way, the snake that eats itself. Yeah, so I think it's something that I'm going to have to seriously think about, to be honest. Because like in an ideal world, like we would so the podcast being about this tool, this little business that we're trying to build, actually getting that over the line and getting into a position where I am mostly focused on growth and content and all of those things, and Brian takes over most of the work on engineering, which is what's taking up a lot of my time at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the right time. And maybe we've actually, if the main objectives are for to get that first-hand experience with podcasting, to have some sort of accountability with myself, maybe those are actually already fulfilled. I've got that little bit of experience, and I have me and Ryan. We have accountability meetups every week, and that's private.
Yeah,
that doesn't get published, which is fine because it does the same thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's a hard question because a lot of podcasts actually stop at 5, 6, 7 episodes for a good reason. Because actually the person discovers that they don't enjoy it as much as they thought they would, or they discover that the audience that they thought existed doesn't have the same demand for what they thought they'd put out. They get a bit of feedback and they hear and they go, okay, let's just put it off for a while, or forever. Or it's even just, it just doesn't fit into your timeline at the moment. It's not high enough priority. Like you say, there's not enough pain or there's not enough benefit in creating this thing to make it actually worth putting everything else off.
Yeah.
I would say there's the people that make it work, the people that attain that consistency usually have that really solid idea of why it's worthwhile. You're talking about two purposes that are not necessarily long term. So getting experience with podcasting, you can say, I've done it. I've felt the pain of that startup. Therefore, if I stop now, I've still got that out of it, which is great. You've got that secondary goal, which you can have achieved even if you stop. But marketing growth is potentially not part of it.
Yeah.
Do you see the podcast as helping with that, like helping to market the product?
No, the further it goes on, I think that was definitely the idea at the beginning, but actually the further it goes on, the amount of time it takes to actually properly market and grow the podcast, I can't justify. I know I can't. So, in that sense, there's been a little bit of growth and there's been some listeners. There's even been 1 or 2 people that have got in touch, and that was really nice. But
that's cool.
I don't think it's actually providing much that we wouldn't get by focusing on growth once we have a product to grow. Do you know what I mean? So the idea was let's build a bit of an audience just now, but that's taken away from everything else.
Yeah. I mean, the counter argument is that, and you'll know this as well as I, but usually it's too late to start your marketing once the product is live.
Yeah.
You want to be planning that well ahead, don't you? And with content even more so. But then if you're saying the purpose of the podcast wasn't necessarily built around that anyway, it sounds like it's grown a bit of an audience. But equally, it's not even your full-time job either. Like this is a very kind of time compressed project really as well, compared to what some other people can put into something. Then, maybe podcasting is not the most effective use of your time right at this very moment, especially when you are talking relatively. I mean, that whole idea of starting your marketing early applies really strongly to big product, to somebody who's like taken on a bit of funding to build something over a year, or even if somebody's bootstrapping, but it's still going to take you 6 months or a year to kind of get that prototype, that beta test, that first version out. You don't want to wait a year, but you're talking about getting your version out within what, month, 2 months?
Yeah. And here's the thing. Well, that has been pushed further due to some of the work that's been done on the podcast. I think by now we might have had something out.
So when it's that fast an iteration, I think you can definitely justify product first and then marketing. Like there's definitely kind of adaptation to this situation.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of room for a podcast to grow the product. So the little product that we're releasing, there's a whole topic around that, well, it doesn't matter so much in this context, but around, like, let's say it's a topic like conversion rate optimization or something like that. There's a really specific product there. A really specific bit of content a topic to target with content there, specific problems to talk about, things that will actually directly help the people that we're aiming the product at. So in that sense, that's probably a much better podcast for us to spend a lot of time on than maybe something that's a little bit, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm coming to a really annoying conclusion that I didn't expect to come to today.
Which is what?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it is worth continuing at this point. I don't know if it is. Maybe not what it is at the moment, and not at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it has definitely shown me. I've got very good sort of feelings from doing it. I've got a feel for the sort of, with the small amount of listeners that we've got, the interaction was, I felt pretty good, pretty high quality, and I think there's one thing that I really liked about it was that there's a lot of content that you can get out of it. Out of recording one thing, there's a lot of micro content you can get out the other side. But breaking it down here with you, I don't feel that continuing it right now actually serves the core objectives of it, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So to do another flip, talking about it that way, is there a way to simplify? Is there a way to cut down the time and actually still make incremental progress, little bits of progress on it, keep it alive? You're talking just when you start talking about getting all that extra bit of content out of it. That's the route we often end up taking, is that if I do this show, I've got to get the most from it possible.
Yeah.
Therefore, I record half an hour. I have to put it into tools to pick out 20 different highlights, publish them all on 7 different social media platforms, blah, blah, blah. Or actually, is it enough for you and Ryan to commit to 20 minutes once a fortnight, every 2 weeks, to do a quick catch up on progress and talk about one short topic related to the problem you're trying to solve just now, and commit equally strongly to, this is the only thing we're going to do with it. We're going to record it in Alitu. We're going to do a bare minimum edit, and we're going to publish it immediately and do nothing else.
Yeah.
And that on its own still continues to build on those goals you've talked about in terms of the podcasting itself, but still continuing to develop that audience in a way, creating that diary. Often you can come out with some really good thoughts, and actually it's worthwhile just talking to your co-founder about those kind of issues once every couple of weeks as well.
Yeah.
But actually you could probably constrain that to 30, 45 minutes of time in a week if you were really strict with it.
I think the benefit to that as well is actually it's content that we can use in the future. We don't need to repurpose it now.
Yes,
I guess
that's totally true.
And that's a big part of the pressure, and the reason that I'm feeling kind of not fantastic about it is that I put out the last couple of episodes and I didn't do much else with it. But people still downloaded, people still listened.
That's it. That's totally fine. Yeah. There's you and I have talked about like video and podcasting many times, and one of my big misgivings is how much of this pressure it puts on new podcasters to think that they have to do that kind of thing. Like they have to put out video clips, they have to put out, all sorts of repurposing, just because they're kind of pressured into it. There's this kind of hype that says if you're not doing video podcasting, then you're not growing your show. It has to be done to make a success of any show. But I think it becomes a barrier, and it kills shows because of that. So it does work well. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it doesn't work well for everyone, and you can do it without as well. So, and there's also stages, there's life cycles. Like you said, you could do it just audio for the next 3 months. And then when you've got a bit more time because you're finished with the build side, you go back and start repurposing that back catalogue. Absolutely.
Yeah, I hadn't even really considered that, to be honest. Like, it doesn't actually all need to be just now.
Yeah.
Especially with the goals that we have, Yeah. Okay. I might have turned around.
Just to go back and forth.
3 or 4 flip-flops make a good decision.
This is the hardest part of the process for a lot of people. It's that kind of that lull where you're all excited about the idea. You get this idea for a podcast, you plan it out, you've got a really solid idea of your audience, the problem you're solving, the solution you're offering, all that kind of stuff. And then it's the purpose, it's the commitment, the consistency that really catches people. It's why that kind of there was that cliched stat around pod fading. The average show pod fades around 7. I'm not even sure if that's even close to true anymore, but it was
the most recent one I heard
stat.
was 45% of podcasts stop after 3 episodes.
3, really? Yeah. That totally doesn't surprise me, because that's kind of when it turns from novelty and excitement into, oh, this is something I'm going to do every week. It's why I talk about seasons a lot as well, like the idea of just committing to 3 months, 12 episodes, or 2 months, 8 episodes, and then revisit it then. So because it takes away a bit of that, right, I've committed to this for every week, forever. And that's just the most horrible thought. Committing to anything forever is it's difficult. So, yeah. Oh, well, it sounds like it's worth a wee bit of an hour of just sitting down and kind of noting down some thoughts and thinking, is it worth stopping altogether for now? Or can we time box this into under an hour every week, and in a way that we have a bit of accountability? Because even with that, you're still going to get that pressure to cancel it every single week.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think there is a way. Even if it is even more lo-fi. But I think even just taking away that sort of pressure I put on myself, and to be clear, no one else put the pressure on me. I put the pressure on myself to think, I have to get the most out of this. I have to repurpose this in so many ways, and I have to create this many clips, and I have to, but actually there's people already listening. It's already kind of doing what I need it to do.
Yeah.
So I think that might be the way. And I think actually doing it more with Ryan makes a lot more sense as well. Because you're right, there is a much more solid accountability there. Have you ever done a solo podcast? Like fully solo?
Yeah.
Did you find that difficult?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. For that exact reason, because there's less accountability, there's less reason to keep it consistent. Yeah, there was a show I ran. One example was the Podcast Tools Show. If you search that on iTunes out there, you can iTunes. I still say that, Apple Podcasts. You'll find the Podcast Tools Show ran for 10, 12 episodes, and then just fell off because I was really excited about the idea. Still think it's a nice idea. Still, we got some listeners for it, but because it was just me, busyness took over, essentially. Yeah. I don't have any trouble with the format. I actually quite enjoy the format, as long as you've got a really sort of solid purpose and goal around it. But I don't know. I think there is definitely more usefulness to doing it with somebody else, especially if it's the guy you're working on this project with. Like you listen to talking to Justin from Transistor. Him and John had done that show through the first 1 or 2 years of their founding that company. And I've talked to him about it a few times, like how helpful he found it, actually just them having this time in the calendar to discuss stuff. And they obviously chatted many times in between, but there was still a really nice little cadence to them discussing problems and issues and findings. And they came up with solutions to things live on mic. Because of that. And I'm not saying that's what yours would end up being, but there's other benefits to actually talking to your partner in crime on this as well. So I don't know.
Yeah. And the thing is, we already have that in the calendar, kind of. So it'd just be a case of getting the recording to work. If we can get it to work, and then
cool.
Time boxing it a little bit. Okay, right. You've taught me on the ledge and back off the ledge. So well done.
But you have to consider both. That's it. I think that's the thing. Like being honest about the fact that sometimes it's not the right time. Sometimes it is the right time to shut down a podcast, either forever or just for a little while. But then I think before you get to that stage, it is worth thinking, how could this be easier? What's that? That's a Tim Ferriss question. He asks that all the time. Like, what would this look like if it was easy? Like, what would the kind of ideal situation be every week or every fortnight? And I can get this out, no worries whatsoever.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Good advice.
Alrighty.
Thanks, Colin.
No worries at all. I look forward to finding out which way you've jumped in a week or two.
Woo! I'll let you know. Okay.
Cheers.
Bye.